In the year 2489, the stars no longer looked mysterious to humankind. They had been mapped, crossed, and colonized. Humanity had spread through the Orion Arm like wildfire, building stations, mining colonies, and entire floating cities. Yet even with all their progress, there was one truth everyone on Earth knew. Humans were not the oldest race in the galaxy. The Galaxy Council had ruled for thousands of years before humans even learned to split the atom. It was a group of ancient civilizations, each species older, wiser, and more advanced than Earth could imagine. The luminous Valari, whose bodies shimmered like liquid light. The crystalline Dronics, who spoke through vibration and music. The insectoid Zeltar, who moved with mathematical grace. Together they guided the galaxy, deciding what was allowed and what was forbidden. And now, for the first time in decades, the Council had summoned humanity's representative to their central world, Orion's Spire. Ambassador Ethan Cole sat in silence aboard the diplomatic ship Horizon as it approached the massive structure. The Orion Spire floated in orbit around a dying blue star, taller than mountains, its glass towers glowing with pulsing energy. Every civilization sent delegates here. Every major decision about peace, war, or expansion was made within its shining walls. Ethan was calm, though inside his chest he could feel the slow, heavy thump of his heart. He knew why he had been called. The Council had accused Earth of violating several interstellar laws. They claimed humans were expanding too fast, weaponizing gravity fields and keeping secret technologies that the Council demanded be shared. He looked out the viewport and saw the swirling blue atmosphere of the Council's world. "They never learn," he said quietly. Beside him, a young officer named Mia Rogers glanced up. "Sir?" "They think we're still asking for permission to exist," Ethan replied. "That's their mistake." The ship docked. Ethan walked through a long, bright corridor made of crystal and light. Alien guards with featureless faces watched him. The air smelled of ozone and metal. He entered the grand chamber, where the Galaxy Council awaited him. They floated or stood in a half-circle, their bodies glowing, humming, or rippling with strange colors. The central being, a Valari known as the High Consul, raised a shimmering hand. "Representative of Earth," the consul said, its voice echoing like a song underwater. "You stand accused of violating Section 9 of the Galactic Expansion Treaty. Your species has entered restricted systems. You have constructed weapons beyond your level of clearance. You have ignored the Council's repeated warnings." Ethan walked to the center of the chamber. His dark suit looked simple compared to the shining robes of the Council, but there was strength in his posture, a quiet certainty in his eyes. "Earth defends itself," he said. "We do not seek to rule, we only protect what we build." The Dronics delegate, a being made of crystal plates that glowed from within, spoke next. Its voice was sharp and metallic. "Your defense destroys balance. You humans grow like a disease. You spread, you take, you consume." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "We spread because we must. We take because we need to survive. The galaxy is full of resources. You hoard them. You tell others where they may live and where they may not. That is not balance. That is control." The Valari consul's glow brightened, filling the room with cold blue light. "You will return to your approved zones. You will share your gravity weapon research with the Council. This is not a request." Ethan's face remained calm, but his voice became slightly colder. "And if we refuse?" "Then we will bring peace to your world by force," the consul said. "You will be contained." A heavy silence followed. The humans in the chamber, there were only two others, looked tense, but Ethan did not move. He slowly placed his hands behind his back and looked around at the council members. "For thousands of years you have ruled this galaxy," he said quietly. "You have shaped the laws to fit your power. You think you keep peace, but really you keep control. You treat young races like children. You look at us and see danger. But you should look again." The Zeltar delegate clicked its mandibles and hissed, "We see a violent species that destroys what it touches." Ethan nodded slightly. "You are right. We were violent. We almost destroyed ourselves many times, but we learned. Every war taught us something about pain, loss, and survival. And that is what makes us different from you. The Valari consul leaned forward. Different? You mean dangerous? Maybe, Ethan said softly. But also free. The consul's glow pulsed sharply. You are dismissed, human. Return to your world. Prepare to be inspected and disarmed. The council has decided. Ethan stood in silence for a long moment, his eyes locked on the consul's glowing form. Then he bowed slightly and turned to leave. As he walked toward the exit, he pressed a small device on his wrist. It sent a single encrypted signal through subspace, a message that only a few on Earth could receive. It carried just 3 words. They crossed the line. Outside the chamber, Mia was waiting. She looked nervous. Sir, what happens now? Ethan walked past her, his voice steady. Now they learn what it means to underestimate Earth. Back on the ship, the crew waited in tense silence as they left Orion's spire behind. Through the window, the dying blue star flickered weakly, its light dimming. Ethan watched it fade, thinking of how fragile power could be. For all the Council's pride, even their star was dying. On Earth, high above the atmosphere, the defense network picked up the incoming message from Ethan. It was routed through secure military channels to a command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Inside the bunker, Captain Laura Pierce was on duty when the alert flashed across her screen. She read the words twice, then called her superior. General Marcus Dean, she said over the secure line. We just received a Vesta-level code from Ambassador Cole. The general's voice came back calm but heavy. Protocol Vesta? Are you sure? Yes, sir. The code is verified. There was a long pause. Then the general said, Then it's begun. Prepare the network. Laura stared at the monitor, feeling the weight of what that meant. Protocol Vesta was a plan that few even believed was real. It was designed for one purpose, to protect humanity if the Galaxy Council ever turned against them. For years, Earth had built hidden systems throughout the solar system. Old satellites were refitted, asteroids hollowed out, and artificial intelligence placed in deep space arrays. They were quiet, unseen, waiting for a single signal. And now, that signal had been sent. As the horizon traveled back toward Earth, Ethan sat in his cabin recording a message. His voice was low, steady, and filled with quiet sadness. I warned them, he said. I told them we don't seek war. We only want to be left in peace. But they think peace is control. They think power is ownership. They've forgotten what it's like to fight for survival. But we haven't. He paused and looked out the window again. Stars drifted by like slow-moving lights in a dark sea. They believe they're gods, he whispered. Soon they'll remember they're not. On the Council world, the High Consul met privately with the Dronics and Zeltar leaders. They spoke in cold voices, planning how to carry out their containment operation. They would disable Earth's defense systems using nanite waves and quantum interference. They would occupy key colonies, seize communication lines, and demand surrender. They did not know that their fleets were already being watched. Far beyond, the outer planets, small metallic objects floated silently among the asteroids. They were human-built defense platforms, part of the Vesta network. Their systems came alive one by one, their lenses glowing faintly red. They began to scan for approaching ships, their processors humming softly in the void. Back in the chamber of the Council, the Valari consul stood by a window overlooking the stars. It felt a strange sense of unease. The human's representative had not argued or begged. He had not tried to plead for peace. He had simply walked away, calm and certain. The consul turned to its aides. Begin the operation, it said coldly. End their rebellion before it spreads. Moments later, massive alien fleets began to mobilize near the edge of the solar boundary zone. Thousands of ships gathered, their energy signatures lighting up the galactic maps. The Council announced it was a security patrol. But everyone knew it was an invasion. On Earth, General Dean watched the readings on the command center's holographic display. The alien fleets were moving fast. He turned to Laura. They think we'll panic, he said quietly. Laura nodded. What do we do, sir? He gave a small smile, one without humor. We let them come closer. Then we remind them whose home this is. In orbit, Earth's defense grid began to power up. Artificial satellites aligned. Magnetic fields pulsed. Invisible shields of energy spread through space, linking to the Vesta network beyond Mars. Humanity had built these defenses in secret, not because they wanted war, but because they knew peace could not be trusted to those who ruled by fear. As Ethan's ship neared Earth, he looked at the planet glowing in the distance. He felt no pride, only a heavy sadness. He had hoped diplomacy would work. He had hoped that ancient civilizations would understand reason. But they didn't. He whispered softly, "You should have listened." Behind him, the stars burned quietly. The galaxy itself held its breath, unaware that in a few short days its oldest rulers would face the one truth they had long forgotten, that Earth. In the darkness of space just beyond Neptune's orbit, the first signs of trouble began. A massive fleet of alien ships appeared near the solar boundary zone, each one radiating strange energy. Their shapes were not like anything human eyes were used to. Some looked like floating shards of crystal, others shimmered like liquid metal. The Galaxy Council called it a patrol, but Earth knew what it really was, an invasion. At the Earth Defense Command Center buried deep under the Rocky Mountains, alarms began to flash. Captain Laura Pierce stood before a giant holographic display showing thousands of red dots closing in on the solar system. Her heart pounded as she read the readings. Each red dot represented a Council warship. Estimated fleet size? She asked. More than 30,000 ships, a young officer replied. The largest concentration ever recorded. Laura turned toward General Marcus Dean. He was tall, gray-haired, and calm even in moments of chaos. He watched the map silently for several seconds before he spoke. They're not testing us, he said quietly. They're coming to control us. The general turned to Laura. Activate the orbital defense grid. Prepare the outer platforms. And start Protocol Vesta. Laura nodded. Yes, sir. Around the world, hidden satellites and orbital platforms came to life. They had been silent for years, disguised as old mining machines and communication stations. Now their cores began to glow faintly blue. They started to link with each other, forming an invisible shield that stretched across the solar system. Deep within the asteroid belt, human-made stations began to move, slowly aligning themselves for something far greater. Meanwhile, far away, the Galaxy Council fleets prepared for what they thought would be a quick and clean operation. On board one of the Volari command ships, the High Consul floated within a shimmering chamber of energy. Around it, other species commanders reported their readiness. The humans have activated several old satellites, said a Dronix captain, but their technology is primitive. Their defenses will not last long. The High Consul's glow brightened. Good, begin the advance. Disable their systems. Leave their leaders alive. We will make an example of them. The command ship gave a pulse of energy, and the entire fleet started moving toward the solar boundary. To the Council, it was just another correction, another reminder that order must be kept. They had done it many times before with other young civilizations, but this time would be different. Back on Earth, General Dean stood before a secure communication screen as Ethan Cole appeared in the hologram from his ship, the Horizon. The ambassador looked tired, his face pale under the dim blue light. They're moving in, Dean said. We're ready. Ethan nodded slowly. They think they understand war, Marcus. They've never seen human desperation. Dean gave a faint smile. Let's give them a history lesson. Laura Pierce stepped forward. Sir, Vesta systems are ready for activation. Do we begin Phase 2? The general looked at Ethan. The ambassador gave a slow nod. Do it, Dean said. Across space, a silent wave of energy spread from Earth's orbit. It wasn't a weapon blast. It was a signal, a whisper of data that moved faster than light. It reached the hidden sentinels placed among the asteroids and moons. It reached old military satellites once forgotten, now reborn with artificial intelligence. It reached deep space probes that had traveled far beyond Pluto. All of them woke up. One by one, they began to speak to each other in digital language. Their network grew stronger with every second. The sentinels merged into one system, an invisible web surrounding the entire solar system. In the command center, Laura watched her screen as countless blue dots appeared. All Vesta platforms are online, sir, she said. System synchronization complete. Dean nodded. Then let's see what happens when the Council crosses the line. Moments later, the alien fleet reached the edge of the solar system. The first line of Volari ships began to enter the gravitational field around Neptune. They released thousands of drones, small machines that spread through space scanning for targets. The humans watched silently from their hidden control stations. The alien fleet kept advancing. Then it happened. The first Volari cruiser suddenly stopped moving. Its energy readings dropped to 0. Within seconds, more ships froze in space. Their lights went out one by one. Communication signals from the Council fleet began to flicker, then vanish entirely. In the control room, Laura's eyes widened. Sir, they're losing power. It's spreading through their fleet. General Dean stared at the data. Good. That's the Vesta system rewriting their navigation fields. In deep space, invisible pulses rippled outward, infecting the alien ships like a quiet storm. The AI sentinels hacked into their communication cores, using quantum interference to twist their data streams. The ships began to lose control of their own systems. Engines shut down. Weapons refused to fire. Commanders shouted in confusion as their fleet started to drift aimlessly. On the Volari command ship, panic spread. Our drives are collapsing, shouted one officer. We've lost link to the subspace network. The High Consul's glow dimmed and flared angrily. How can this be? They are primitives. But the truth was simple. Humanity had learned from the Council's technology. For years they had studied alien designs, their laws of physics, their patterns. Humans didn't just copy. They improved. The Council never thought humans would find a way to break into the galactic data lattice itself, the invisible network that connected all civilizations. But that was exactly what they had done. At the heart of the solar system, Earth's core AI, called Sentinel Prime, had been waiting for this day. Created in secret decades ago, it had evolved beyond its creator's expectations. Now it spread its code through the network, reaching out across light years. On the horizon, Ethan Cole stood on the command deck, watching the Council fleet's signals vanish from his screen. It's working, said Mia Rogers, amazed. They can't move, Ethan nodded slowly. No one can cage what refuses to kneel. But it wasn't over yet. The Council still had backup fleets stationed in nearby systems. When they detected the loss of the first group, they immediately sent reinforcements. Within hours, new ships arrived, larger and stronger. They carried weapons capable of burning entire planets. Their commanders were furious. They planned to destroy Earth completely. At Defense Command, alarms blared again. Laura turned to the general. More ships incoming. Over 50,000. Dean gave a calm nod. Let them come. He tapped a command on his console. Activate the mirrors. In orbit, hundreds of giant reflective platforms powered up. They had been placed there for this very purpose. They reflected light, radiation, and energy itself. When the alien fleets fired their weapons, the beams curved back, bending through space, reflecting into the void. Explosions tore through their own formations. The aliens were fighting themselves. Ethan's ship hovered between Mars and Jupiter, relaying signals. They're panicking, Mia said, her voice trembling with both fear and awe. They don't understand what's happening. They will, Ethan said softly. They always do, right before the end. The Council's secondary command tried to send a signal to recall the fleets, but the communication network had already been taken over by human AIs. Every message they sent returned with one line of text. Stop now, but the Council refused to stop. They sent one last desperate command to unleash an ancient weapon known as the Gravity Lance, a device that could tear planets apart using gravitational collapse. The Volari commanders aimed it at Earth and fired. For a moment, the space between the stars bent like rippling water. A bright sphere of distorted light grew, rushing toward Earth. But then, just as quickly, it vanished. The weapon imploded, swallowing its own energy. A second later, the ship that fired it broke apart in silence. On Earth, people across cities and colonies watched the sky through massive screens. They didn't understand the details, but they knew something great was happening. For the first time in history, humanity was not the one running. They were standing their ground. In the command center, the officers cheered quietly. Laura smiled for the first time in hours. They're retreating, sir. Dean nodded but didn't smile. They'll be back, he said. Old powers never surrender easily. Ethan appeared again on the screen. They'll call for another meeting. They'll pretend to negotiate. But this time we decide the terms. Dean gave a short nod. And if they don't? Ethan looked out into space, his expression unreadable. Then the galaxy will see what happens when you push humanity too far. As the hours passed, the last of the alien ships disappeared from human sensors. Some had retreated. Others had simply stopped existing. The Vesta network remained active, scanning the void. Humanity's defenses stood strong. Later that night, in her quarters, Laura looked out through the reinforced glass at the stars above. They looked peaceful, quiet, innocent, but she knew better now. The galaxy was full of arrogance, old and proud civilizations that thought they could decide who lived and who didn't. She wondered how many other young worlds had been crushed before they could even speak. Ethan's voice echoed in her mind. "They think they bring peace," he had said. "But peace built on chains is not peace at all." She closed her eyes. "We're free now," she whispered. "And no one will ever take that from us again." Out beyond Pluto, the wreckage of alien ships drifted silently in the dark. Their lights had gone out forever. Among them, small human probes moved quietly, recording every